Hey guys, hopefully this is the last part. I don't have to split this up into 2 sections. But now we're going to be trying to tackle the word problems. This is I can write real world inequalities. And so I'm not going to try to solve the first 2 because we just want to write them. So it says Missy's getting married and addressing invitations. She has at least 140 envelopes and has addressed 26 of them. Write an inequality that describes how many more invitations must be addressed. I know my keyword here is at least. We have at least 140 envelopes. And so what I'm going to do is draw a little picture to kind of help me comprehend, like imagine that. So I have to do at least 140 envelopes. So if I do exactly 140 envelopes, that would still count because it, counts in the at least. I also know that if I do more than 140 envelopes, that's okay. However, if I do anything less than this, then, it doesn't really make sense because this is a minimum. That's what at least means. I know that out of these 140 envelopes, she has addressed 26 of them. So these are things that I know. What I'm looking for is how many more envelopes must be addressed. So I don't really know that, but I know that this and this combined will equal my 140 minimum. And so in case the word combined didn't kind of help you, we are adding this because this amount plus this amount will equal the at least, the minimum of 140 envelopes. So I'm going to leave this right here because I don't really need to solve it. I'm only worried about if I can write them. Next, we have this problem. In order to ride a roller coaster, a rider must be greater than 48 inches tall. Right now, Jeff is 45 inches tall. Write an inequality that describes how many more inches Jeff must grow in order to ride the roller coaster. So instantly, I know that my inequality is greater than. I know that you have to be more than 48 inches tall. If you're not, then you can't write it. So if you're exactly 48 inches, it's fine, you can write it. Oh wait, no, it's not fine, you can't write it. Because it says greater than, so you have to be at least 49 and 1 inch tall. Or no, 49 inches tall. And so, because it's greater than, it's not going to be or equal to. I would just write my trusty greater than sign, if I can figure out which way it goes. Oh, by the way, a good way to figure out if it's greater than or less than is to kind of look at your hand. Your left hand makes an L. So an L stands for less than. This one does not make an L, so you can assume that it's greater than. But I think that this way is a lot better than the alligator or the crocodile, just because when we're older, we can't really say that the alligator eats a bigger number if we don't even know what the number is. So that's why I like to say L for less than, L for left, L for less than. Ooh, that zoomed in real close. Okay, so back to what we were talking about. Right now, we know that Jeff is 45 inches tall. We know that he needs to grow a little bit more to, hit that 45 or above, max. And so he needs to grow this much more. And so we know that 45 plus the amount he grows should be greater than 48 inches tall. That's why I'm going to do 45 with x being how many more inches Jeff needs to grow. Because this and this combined will be greater than 48 inches. Next, we have this thing about Sam. He can join the gym for $25 per month or for a flat rate of $500. What's the minimum number of months that Sam would have to be a gym member to make the flat rate a better choice? So I know minimum is our keyword here. So minimum, if you hit, here, let's start with this, $25 per month. That should be a really big sign that you're doing 25 times this, X, the number of months. You also know that we have a flat rate of 500. And so we want the flat rate to be a better choice. So I don't know about you, but I don't like spending a lot of money. So if I spend less money, that's a better choice. I know that this has to be less than, and this should be greater than. So this has to be greater than 500. See how I did that? So I know that this has to be greater than 500. Here's where I actually have to do some work. Because my instructions say solve real-world problems, not only do I need to write this down, I also have to solve it. So you have 25 times x, which is greater than 500. So the opposite of multiplying by 25 is dividing by 25. That way I can make my 1. So x is greater than 500 divided by 25. So 500 divided by 25 should be 20, if I remember correctly. And so we have x is greater than 20. So technically speaking, the minimum number of months would be something over 20. So if you're just rounding to the whole number, it'd be 21 months. So if you go to the gym for about a year and a couple months, then you will be able to have the flat rate be a better choice. Max is creating a playlist and he needs at most 180 minutes worth of music. Bam, I know my keyword right there. He currently has 45 minutes. How many more minutes of music does Max need to include in his playlist? So I know that he needs at most 180 minutes. That's like the max. If he has exactly 180 minutes, that's totally cool. But because this is the maximum he can get, if he gets any more than that, that's not good. So we need something that hits this limit or goes under it, which is less than or equal to. We know he has 45 minutes right now in his playlist. What we don't know is how many more minutes he needs. It can be 1 more minute, it can be, whatever that is. So we know that this and this combined will equal somewhere around 180 minutes, maybe less. That's how I know that I'm adding in this problem, because I'm adding what I don't know with what I do know to get my quote-unquote total. You have x plus 45, so the opposite of adding 45 is subtracting 45, because I need to make a 0 pair. And so I should have x is less than or equal to 135. So when it says how many more minutes, well, it can be 1 more minute, it can be 135 more minutes, but you can't go over that. It has to be less than or equal to 135 minutes. So this was the problem that when I was doing by myself, I had a lot of trouble with it, just because I didn't really read the problem very well. I was kind of skimming it. I knew that a lake was rising at a rate of 4 inches per hour. If a lake rises more than 38 inches, then it will cause flood damage. How long can the lake rise at this rate without causing flood damage? So I'm reading it and I said, oh, well, more than, that's great. But that's only great if I do want to cause flood damage, and that's not very good. We're looking for if we don't want to cause flood damage. Because, flood damage is bad. That's why it can't be more than that. It has to hit at least 36 inches. or less. Because the second it goes over, boom, flood damage. So I know it has to be less than or equal to 35. Per was the big word here. For me, I knew that, okay, per hour means that it's 4 inches every hour. And so we need to see how long it can rise at this rate before we have flood damage. So we have 4 times x is less than or equal to 35. Divide both sides by 4. And because we didn't multiply or divide by a negative number, I can leave my sign alone. And now we need to do 35 divided by 4. Oops. 9's too big, but 8 is not. So it's going to be 8 3/4, or 8 hours and 3/4 of an hour, which is basically 8 hours and 45 minutes. So it can rise up to 8 hours and 45 minutes before we cause flood damage. Okay, my battery is running a little bit low, so I'm going to try to talk a little bit faster. I hope you don't mind. But we have Belinda's Bakery that profits $8 off each box of a dozen cookies. Belinda would like to profit at least $304 per day off of the cookies. How many boxes will Belinda need to sell? I think that my keyword here is at least $304, because I know that she gets $8 off each box, but we want to get at least 304. If you get more, great, but we don't want to get less than that. So we know it's, 304 is okay. Anything more than that is okay. We just don't want to go less than 304. I know that one box is $8. And so I need to sell a bunch of $8 boxes. So I know that it's going to multiply up. That's how I got 8 times x is greater than or equal to 304. Divide both sides by 8 because I need to make this a 1. So we have x is greater than or equal to 304 divided by 8. So you should have gone 38. So Belinda needs to sell at least 38, if not more boxes, in order for her to make at least $304 a day. Okay, 2 more questions. We can do this. The area of a rectangular dog run can be no more than 120 square feet. The length is 15 feet. And so we're looking for the width. Well, let's think about no more than. So you know that it can be exactly 120 square feet. That's why I wrote my or equal to. But I know it has to be less than, because if it's more than, it can be no more than. It's not possible for it to be more than. And here's where you have to kind of think about what area of a rectangle is. If you know that it's length times width, then you're good. Because you can just say, oh, the length is 15 feet. And then you can solve from there. I would divide both sides by 15 because this equals 1. The 120 divided by 15 should be, oh my gosh, I think it's 8 if I remember correctly. Let me double check my work really. Yep, no, it's 8. So I know the width of the dog run is 8 or less. Okay, last one. Hunter has basketball practice 5 days a week. He practices a minimum of 450 minutes per week. On average, how many minutes is each practice? So we know that he practices a minimum of 450 minutes. If he practices more, that means that practice went over. But he does not practice less than that. That means it's okay to have exactly 450 minutes, and it's okay to have more. It's just not okay to have less than that. I know that he practices 5 days a week, and so what we're doing is we're dividing 450 into 5 equal groups. So here's where it gets kind of weird. You know you're dividing it into equal groups, so you need to divide by 5. However, when you have to do inequalities, we have to try to get 1, or like in this case 1. We have to try to do the opposite what it's telling us to do. Because we know we need to divide it, we should be doing 5x, 5 times x is greater than or equal to 450. That way we can do the opposite of multiplying by 5, which is dividing by 5. And then doing whatever 450 divided by 5 is, which is 90. That means that it's at least 90 minutes each practice, if not more. This is probably the most confusing part about inequalities, or equations, honestly. The fact that you know what you have to do, but whenever you write it, you have to kind of think the opposite. And we'll go over this kind of question more if you need help in class. But I hope that this helped. I know this was a 16-minute long video, but if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and happy studying.